about today. Uh, there's a lot of things that clients want to know more about that you'll be able to help them with. So I wanted to start off today with a question, a poll question. We have, I think, three poll questions throughout this, and you can throw the answer in the Q&A. This is just to understand the audience here today. So, which of the following best describes uh, your confidence level with Social Security planning? So you can put in the chat that you're very confident, somewhat confident, not very confident, and maybe a beginner. So you're still learning. So feel free to throw that in the chat, and we can see what type of uh, audience we're working with here. All right, so we're getting somewhat confident, beginner, somewhat, very confident, somewhat. All right, so it looks like the majority are somewhat confident, a few very confident, and then some at the beginning stages. So that's great to understand because, when we're talking to clients and we want to help them with this subject matter that is Social Security, this is an important opportunity because a lot of clients want to know more about their benefits, right? Do I take my own benefit? Do I claim on a spouse or an ex-spouse? What do survivor benefits look like? There's all these kinds of different situations. And for Social Security purposes, there's too much general information that goes around, right? You've probably heard where, maybe an advisor says collect at 62 or full retirement age or 70, but every client is unique and planning for Social Security should be unique as well because not every client is the same. You have some clients who Social Security is their largest or even their only asset, and for other people, it's not. You have some people with other retirement assets like in their 401ks, their Roths, their IRAs, and then other people don't have those assets. There are some people with certain kind of expenses in retirement, and other people don't have those kind of expenses. So you don't want to give this one size fits all, especially when it comes to Social Security and overall retirement and financial planning, because every client is going to be different, and we have to plan accordingly. So here's some of the things that we want to talk about today. First of all, we want to understand that Social Security is the cornerstone of retirement. We're going to go over some Social Security facts, a big misconception that we want to discuss, and the decision-making process for when a client wants to understand what is the best and right timing to claim benefits. Now, again, that's not just going to be a one size fits all, and we have to understand there are other circumstances as it relates to that, but these are the things that we want to discuss today. We're also going to go through some of the important basics. What are some of the terms that you should know? The types of benefits and eligibility factors, and then more specific factors like marital status, employment status, and some other things that we'll discuss as well. So I wanted to start off by talking about the reason behind Social Security being the cornerstone of retirement. If you think about all of the retirement and financial aspects in someone's life, right? Whether that's 401ks or Roths or IRAs, retirement personal savings, Social Security, there are very few reliable resources for retirement, right? Meaning that, is it a guarantee that I'm going to get certain amount of, monthly income that's going to offset my fixed expenses? Social Security is one of those dependable income sources, right? You're getting a check every single month, you know what it's going to be, and you can use that towards something specific with your fixed expenses, right? Now, not every client has other retirement assets. As we said, every client is going to be a little bit different. But the one thing that they have in common that we know is that they're going to be claiming Social Security, at least at one point or another throughout their life. So whether that's a retirement benefit or a spousal or ex-spousal benefit, survivor payments, payments for their dependents, Social Security is that universal topic. But if we look at what's going on with Social Security today, there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of clickbaity information. There's AI that is not that accurate, even though it seems like it could be. But a lot of clients don't know what questions to even ask AI if they want to get the answer. And AI is still a little behind here. But most importantly, people are looking for that personalized, planning, right? They want to know, is this going to be the best overall plan for me? And Social Security is only one piece of the puzzle. Although it's a very important piece of the puzzle, people have other things going on, right? So that's where you guys come in as the professionals to say, yes, we can help you understand and optimize your Social Security benefits, understanding that we want to take into consideration what's going on with your financial and retirement outlook as a whole, because we want to help give you the most secure retirement possible. Now, the reason we want to help clients with a secure retirement is because the majority of people are concerned about their longevity risk, right? Outliving their funds in retirement. In fact, 48% of people will outlive their retirement income and be forced to go back to work just to make ends meet. Now, the reason that happens is due to lack of education and lack of planning, especially in topics that resonate with the majority of Americans, like Social Security. So it's never going to be a time where you don't want to know more about this subject, because you know every client wants to know more for themselves. They have questions. You can ask them questions back to better understand their situation. And overall, instead of just pitching a product or a service, you can help them with a solution to a secure retirement that they're looking for. Now, what is the real impact for clients? I'm sure many of you may not know this, but the majority of clients will leave a substantial amount of money on the table in Social Security benefits. 96% of people will leave money on the table simply because they're just uneducated, or they might have received wrong or misleading information. They might have got this generic answer like, collect at 62, or the full retirement age or 70, right? Those are the three most common. But remember, you can claim anytime from 62 all the way to 70 for a retirement benefit, but that's usually the only aspect that people are looking at, right? What about considering the spousal or ex-spousal benefit? What about considering that if you claim at a certain point today, how that may impact benefits later on, like a survivor payment, right? The majority of people who have dependents that can claim benefits, maybe because they have a difference in their spouse's ages, and they have a dependent that's minor, or even a disabled child. Those dependents are eligible for benefits, and a lot of people don't know that, and therefore leave a lot of money on the table. Overall, clients are uneducated about the decision process. So, they're going in and claiming at a time that is not the best and right time for them. And so what happens is, through our software, which is the RSSA roadmap, the average household leaves over $139,000 on the table. Now, that's a lot of money in retirement for the majority of people, and even for the high net worth individuals. They don't want to lose $139,000. That's a significant sum of money. So, what's at stake here for clients is that they need to find a resource, a reliable resource, like you guys, to be able to walk them through their options, understand the different types of benefits, and really just get on the best and right plan for them as far as their Social Security and any other of their assets that you can help them with as well. Now, this takes into consideration the whole holistic planning approach, right? Understanding that each client is unique, we don't just want to give that general answer information. We also don't want to run the numbers as if it's general as well, right? You've probably seen that there are some Social Security calculators out there that, ask for the Social Security statement estimate, or just, an estimate based on their last, 5 or 10 years worth of work. But those things can be very inaccurate, because that may not see the whole story of what's actually going on, right? We're going to talk about today how Social Security's benefits are calculated based on your top 35 years of earnings. That Social Security statement amount you see is based on assumptions that may or may not be accurate, and also giving an estimate of the last 5 to 10 years, again, doesn't show the whole story of their top 35 years that is actually used to calculate benefits. So we're going to talk more about that. But again, at the end of the day, we don't want to just throw out this generic answer. We want to be able to help clients fully understand, here's everything you need to know in order to make the best decision. Okay. Now, we've had stories where, financial advisors, insurance agents, they're giving this generic one size fits all answer, to collect at 62 or to wait till 70. But, realistically, every client should have their own personalized plan. And so, what we do as an organization through the RSSA program is we actually train and educate professionals like you guys to do what we are doing now, right? Educating clients, helping them understand everything they need to know in order to make the best and right decision for themselves, for their family, and Social Security, even though it seems like a retirement program, it's much more than that. And we're going to hit on that over the next few slides as well. Now, another thing that happens, all right, so you have clients that leave a lot of money on the table because they make poor decisions or they could receive wrong or misleading information, whether that's from a financial advisor, from an insurance agent, from friends and family that just tell them something, right? That, again, without understanding everything you need to know, this causes people to be put in a very tough position in retirement. Another thing that happens is people go to the Social Security Administration. The Social Security Administration, by law, is not allowed to give personalized advice. They are allowed to answer questions, but unfortunately, they're not trained, right? They don't know really how to ask the right questions back. They don't know how to understand the context of that question. They're kind of just reading off of a prompt, and they're not really giving you that, information that you really need to know. And so what happens is clients, based on that, also make poor decisions and can not only just leave a lot of money on the table, but they also could receive an overpayment notice. So if you haven't seen this segment before, there was a 60-minute segment on Social Security overpayments, and it talked about how over 1 million Americans or more every year will receive an overpayment notice. Now, the problem is that, it's really through no fault of the client, right? They received wrong or misleading information from Social Security, from their advisor, from their agent. It's really on us to educate our clients to avoid these things because they actually can be easily avoided by educating our clients. So this 60-minute segment, if you have a chance to watch it, it's, you can look it up on Google or YouTube. It's a great, you know, video and segment to watch about how people are really put in a tough position and have to pay back anywhere from $50 to $250,000. And it sounds crazy. Like, how could someone receive an overpayment that high? But it's because Social Security doesn't catch it for 3 years, 5 years. And by the time they actually catch it and send that to the client owes all this money. And for someone who's on a fixed income or has already spent that money, imagine having to pay that back either as a lump sum or they can pay it back in, based out of their Social Security checks. But Social Security will actually withhold 50% of their check until it's recouped. For someone who owes back $50 to $250,000, that could be forever, right? They may never recoup that money. And so, this is what's going on. And, as long as we educate our clients about why these things happen, how to avoid them, people are going to continue to have this situation and you could be able to help them avoid these things. So I think that when we talk about Social Security, a lot of people talk about the different benefits, right? Retirement, spousal, ex-spousal, the decision-making process. But nowadays, with all of the, clickbaity information, misleading information, there's a lot of talk about Social Security running out of money, right? That's probably the number one topic that is talked about. And unfortunately, there's some truth to it, but a lot of misconception about what's actually going on. So I think it's important that we talk about that because we want to educate our clients not just on the specific benefits, but other things like, is Social Security running out of money, and other things that aren't related to direct benefits, but just Social Security as a program, right? So 3 in 4 Americans, that's 75% of people, think that and are concerned that Social Security will run out of money in their lifetime. And it's really no surprise because you have the news and you have articles, and every which way they look, they're seeing, hey, Social Security is running out of money, right? And again, there's a lot of misconceptions that go behind that. So let's actually talk about what that looks like today. So, Social Security's biggest misconception: the Social Security funds will be completely depleted in 2034, right? Many of us here may know that it's not going to be a complete cut of Social Security benefits, but it's going to be what's known as a haircut, right? They're going to take about 20% of a cut. So if someone's receiving $1,000 benefit in 2033, 2034, that would be an $800 benefit. But a lot of people think that they're going to get no Social Security by 2033, 2034. And so they're making poor decisions. We know when people read these articles and are making scared decisions, they're making poor decisions, right? And so that's what's happening today is people are rushing to claim thinking, hey, maybe if I'm grandfathered in, I won't get cut or, whatever the case is. Now, the truth is, if they do cut benefits, it's going to be a 20% cut across the board, whether you're claiming benefits or not. Now, the last time something like this happened was in 1983. And the 1983 amendments basically came up with all these different new rules for Social Security to prolong that extra 20% surplus over the next, what would have been 2020. Now, it exceeded expectations and is now supposed to be that extra 20% cut by 2033, 2034. But it just goes to show that even the slightest changes that may not look huge on paper can really make a big difference in continuing that 20% surplus throughout the rest of the next 100 to 200 years. And Social Security, for many people, is their largest asset. And so, most likely, and I can't say for certain, but most likely it's going to continue in some capacity with that additional 20%. So people shouldn't panic too much, but the reason they're panicking is because there's too much misleading information or, clickbaity, scare tactic information, right? So it's important to know how Social Security works. Social Security has always been and will always be a pay as you go system. So those who are paying in now, all of us here on this call, are paying into Social Security based on our paycheck. That's 6.2% if we're an employee. And then as an employer, you're paying on behalf of the employee and the employer 12.4%. Now, we're paying that out of every single check, right? Now, up to a certain amount of money, I think the limit is around 170 something thousand. I don't know the exact number, but once you make that amount or more, that 6.2% no longer comes out of your check. So there is a limit of what you're actually paying in each year, depending on your income. However, that covers that 80% of benefits being paid out. So what we're paying in now are paying for those who are retiring. Now, when Social Security first started, that was okay because you had one person paying in for 40 people paying in for every one person claiming. Whereas now it's just two people paying in for one person claiming. And that's because, life expectancy has increased and people are living longer and collecting money for a longer period of time, right? But overall, Social Security is still that pay as you go system, and that covers 80% of benefits. That's not changing. What's changing is the 20% surplus, which, again, not just for those who are paying into Social Security at the 6.2 or the 12.4%, but it also goes into the taxes on Social Security benefits are put back in. And, some certain bonds and treasuries that Social Security invests in as well. But Social Security is not supposed to take any money from outside sources, and Social Security's funds are not provided to any other government programs either. So it's kind of self-sufficient. But at the end of the day, to kind of keep things simple, Social Security is going to at least pay out 80%. Now, that 20% surplus, which is supposed to be depleted by 2034, 2033, somewhere around that range, there's a lot of things that we can do as professionals to work with NAIFA and work with organizations to relate to the government, this is a program that needs to continue for many reasons, right? And it's really important to do that. So the next thing I want to do is talk about some Social Security basic terms. Some of you may have heard some of these terms before, but today what we want to talk about is what these terms actually mean, not in a sense of a definition, but how they impact a client's claiming decision. So we're going to talk about full retirement age, primary insurance amount, delayed retirement credits, and the cost of living adjustment. Now, Social Security has many more terms than these, but these are the four terms that I picked out that I think are the most crucial and kind of are terms that just about every client, if not every client, should know more about. And that's why I picked them out for you today. So let's start with full retirement age. You might see the term full retirement age or FRA for short. Now, full retirement age is the age at which someone would receive their full retirement benefit. Okay. Now, there's this full retirement age chart here that you can take a look at, and feel free to take a picture of it if you'd like. But it's all based on when someone's birth year. Okay. There's a lot of misconceptions that full retirement age is 65. A lot of clients think that just because Medicare starts at 65. But it's based on the year that you're born. So as you can see here in the chart, anyone born in 1943 to 54 has a full retirement age of 66, and then it incrementally increases each year for an additional 2 months. So 66 in 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, etc. And now anyone born in 1960 or later has a full retirement age of 67. Now, again, what does full retirement age actually mean? Why does it matter to a client? Well, there's a lot of Social Security benefits and rules that are used to create the full retirement age, right? So, meaning that if you are your full retirement age, there are certain rules and benefits that pertain to that age. For instance, at full retirement age, there is your primary insurance amount, right? That is your full retirement benefit. There's also a rule where you can only earn a certain amount of money before full retirement age without being penalized. And at full retirement age, there's no more limitations. So, although this age seems like, oh, it's just your full retirement age, a lot of the rules and benefits related to Social Security are used based on this age and are implemented based on this age. So I think it's important to understand for clients what their full retirement age is and be able to explain why that age is actually so important to them. Cost of living adjustments, another important term because I think a lot of people don't really understand how powerful the cost of living adjustment works. So on the screen here, I put some past cost of living adjustments, and over the last 5 years or so, kind of during that COVID era, we've had some of the highest cost of living adjustments that we've ever had, right? And people in 2022, when we hit that 5.9%, that was the highest cost of living adjustment people have seen in over 2 decades. And when we hit 8.7% the next year, that was obviously even like more like, wow, that's crazy, right? Now, it's important to understand when the market takes a hit, right? Maybe your 401k, goes down, or, there's market fluctuation. Remember that when these things happen, Social Security usually gets a large increase, right? That's where you hit the 5.9 to 8.7. So, as a lot of the other retirement aspects like 401ks and Roths and things that are subject to market fluctuation, Social Security does not have that. Your benefits can never go down. There may be no cost of living adjustment and it stays stagnant, but it can only either stay the same or increase. Now, a couple important points to make about cost of living adjustment is that clients will receive the cost of living adjustment from age 62 and on, whether they're collecting benefits or not. So I know a lot of clients have this misconception that I need to be claiming to get that cost of living. I better claim before 2023, right? To get that 8.7%. But that was actually misleading because you would have gained more money by not claiming, because that 8.7% would have increased your PIA, which increases all of the benefits around it. So overall, if someone's looking at their benefits and you're helping clients look at their benefits from 62 to 70, what you're seeing really is in today's dollars. It's not considering, can they increase their benefits by continuing to work, maybe replacing some of their lower years in their top 35, compounding cost of living adjustments, right? One of the things that people are need to understand, especially for clients, but for you guys, is the biggest question: should I take my money out early and invest it, right? I'm sure many of you probably have heard that before. The reason that you wouldn't do that is, or would do that, is all about your market risk tolerance. Okay. If you leave your money in Social Security, remember, before full retirement age, so 62 to full retirement age, you're getting an average of 6 to 7% of an increase. from full retirement age to 70, you get an 8% per year increase. Now, aside from that, basically 6 to 8% increase each year by waiting, you're also getting compounding cost of living adjustments. Think about the last few years: 5.9%, 8.7%, 3.2%. If you add those on to the 8%, now you're looking at, 13%, 16%, right? Of an increase. Now, while that was happening, the market took a hit. You would have lost money. But if you would have left your money in Social Security, you would have got a 16% increase on your money. So when someone says, I want to take my money out early and invest it, this is a guaranteed increase by leaving it in, right? And compounding cost of living adjustments. Now, if you think you can get more than basically 10% in the market guaranteed without market risk, and you want to do that, then that's a consideration. But for most people, they want that dependable income, at least from a certain amount of sources. So today what we want to talk about is four specific benefits, right? These are the main benefits. There's also, SSI, SSDI, and other things like that. We're not going to really talk about too much of the disability aspect today, but what we want to talk about is the four main benefits, which is a retirement benefit based on someone's own work record, a spousal or even ex-spousal benefit based on a current spouse or a ex-spouse, survivor payments, which could also be based on a current spouse or an ex-spouse, and then dependent benefits. Now, dependent benefits could be biological children, stepchildren, could be even dependent grandchildren. So we'll talk more about that as we go through this today. All right, so before we go on, we want to ask another poll question. So, what concern do you hear most often from clients regarding Social Security? So, I kind of put, a few different answers that I think would be most applicable, but I also put other. So, if it's an other, you can always put other or just type in an answer. But, are clients concerned about Social Security running out of money? Are they concerned if they should claim as early as possible? Are they concerned about working while collecting? Uh, or are they concerned that Social Security won't be there for me, or any other answer? So feel free to throw that in the chat and answer the question as you want. All right, so let's see what we got here. All right, so we got running out of money, won't be there for me, claiming as soon as possible, running out of money. All right, so it looks like the main thing was either Social Security running out of money, which is kind of the same as Social Security won't be there for me in a way, or I should claim as early as possible, right? Again, I have no issue with a client claiming as early as possible if they're making that as an informed decision, right? Understanding why you're doing that. Okay. And it's not, hey, it's because Social Security is going to run out of money, or, I might be gone tomorrow. Because the argument of I might not live very long, you wouldn't have the money to spend anyway, then, right? You might as well protect your longevity, because if you do end up living longer than you thought, unless you have some kind of health issue, right? If you do live longer, do you really want to risk going back to work in your 80s where people aren't hiring people, right? Or somewhere where you're miserable and you have to do this just to put food on the table, or you have to live with, your child. You don't want to put yourself in that position. So although it seems like I want to collect early and just collect my money, there are other ways to plan strategically where you could take other retirement income if you can work a few more years, right? We want to understand each client's thoughts and how we can best provide them with the best educated decision of the best and right time to claim their benefits, and consider everything that goes into that decision, not just a generic, I just want to collect at 62 because it might not be there, right? Okay, so we said this earlier about Social Security benefits being based on someone's top 35 years. Okay, and I think that's important because a lot of clients don't understand that it is based on their top 35 years. A lot of people think that it kind of works like a private pension where, it's based on your last 3 years or even your top 10 years. But it's important to know that Social Security is 35 years of earnings. And if someone doesn't have 35 years, they do take these zeros in those years into consideration. So if someone has 30 years of work but 5 years of zeros, they're going to incorporate those zeros into the calculation. Now, what's more important to understand is if a client is still working or if they plan to work. Maybe they say to you, hey, I want to understand what my benefits will be if I work another 2 years or 5 years. You'll be able to help them understand that, yes, it's based on your top 35 years. Will your future earnings, whether that's another 2 years, 5 years, or whatever the case is, will those earnings increase your benefits based on your past earnings, right? Now, if they're earning anything and they're replacing a zero, that benefit is going to increase. But at the same time, is you may have someone with 35 years and they're still working, and you want to help them understand, well, will that earnings increase your benefits or not? And a consideration with that is it's not as straightforward as I earned 50,000 in 2002. It's also considering the inflation factor. So any earnings that someone has from age 59 and prior are actually multiplied by an indexing factor or an inflation factor. So you can kind of think of it as if someone earned, let's just say, $50,000 in 2002, after the inflation, it may have been 80,000 or $100,000. So all of the earnings that someone has from age 59 and prior are multiplied by that indexing factor, and you would have to replace those kind of earnings to increase your benefits based on future earnings. So any earnings that someone has from age 60 and on are taken at face value. So if you earn 50,000 or more, 50,000 at age 60, you're actually counting it as 50,000. But the indexing happens before age 59. So again, for instance, if someone says, well, I'm earning 50, $100,000 now, I should replace that $50,000 I earned in 2002. But after the indexing in 2002, it might have been 100,001, 100,000, $101,000, right? Which isn't replacing that current $100,000. So overall, and what's cool about the RSSA roadmap, which is our technology, we can actually show the clients how their benefits are calculated, what those 35 years look like, and be able to show them how they may be able to increase their benefits by continuing to work. And in some cases, they might not be increasing their benefits. They may be, earning still into the future, but it's not replacing any of their smallest years. So again, clients should know that and how that works, because if we can increase their benefits by continuing to work and replacing those smaller years, by getting that compounding cost of living adjustment and possibly delaying benefits somewhat years, we're going to be able to help them understand that, hey, you can get an extra five, six, $700 or more every single month with proper planning. And here's how we can help you do that. So overall, what this is doing, the 35 years of calculations, is creating that primary insurance amount. You might also see PIA. Again, that is the full retirement age benefit if they claim at that full retirement age, right? They'll get their full unreduced benefit. And all of the benefits from 62 to 70 are all calculated using this PIA. Now, without getting too much into the details, the PIA is calculated using different bend points and different percentages to create this primary insurance amount. You don't need to worry too much about the details, but again, it's just showing the clients how their benefits are created using that PIA, and all of the benefits surrounding it are all based on that number. So what we want to really tell clients is how they can increase that PIA, whether it's increasing it based on those future earnings, whether it's increasing it based on the cost of living adjustment. These are the different strategies that you can help clients with to really grow their benefit. All right. And that's guaranteed growth, right? It's not like market fluctuation, as I said earlier. So now that that PIA has been created, that really creates their retirement benefit. Now, again, retirement benefit is the actual name of someone's benefit based on their own work record, and that has different criteria. So the first criteria is that someone needs to have at least 40 quarters, or also known as credits, to be able to file for retirement benefits. Now, that usually is based on 10 years worth of work, full time work, because you can earn up to 4 credits per year times 10 years would generally get you to the 40 quarters or credits to qualify. Retirement benefits start as early as age 62 and go all the way up to 70. And as you can see here on the chart, at 67, which in this case is this person's full retirement age, they would receive their full 100% of their benefit. You could also see that there would be reductions for taking early, and the earlier you take, the larger the reduction. And then there's also the delayed retirement credits, which accrue at 8% per year up to age 70. So 70 would be the max that someone would claim. Now, again, this is just looking at benefits in today's dollars. Now, even in today's dollars, the difference between, let's just say 2100 and 3000 or 3000 and 3720 is a big difference. However, it's not to say that, hey, you should collect at 70. It's to say, like, hey, here's what's going on. If you need a certain amount of income, right, you have certain expenses, right? A big question to ask clients is, what are your fixed expenses? You might have a mortgage, you have utilities, you have food, you have things that you know you're going to have to pay every single month, no matter what. Now, if the market takes a hit and your 401k is cut in half and you can't pay those bills, those guaranteed bills, that's going to cause a lot of issues. So, what we want to help a client do is optimize when they take their Social Security, which can offset some of those fixed expenses, right? So, if someone says, well, my fixed expenses are, $3,000 a month and Social Security only gets them 2,100, we want them to maybe delay to get as close to that fixed expense as possible. Now, again, they might have other assets and other things going on that need to be considered, but a lot of times it's helping them understand that, hey, without market risk, we want to get you dependable retirement income, which will offset those fixed expenses. Social Security is one of those sources, and not only will you get $3,000 at full retirement age, but that will probably significantly increase with continuing to work if you plan to do that, as well as the compounding cost of living adjustments. And if you think the $3,000 will be a lot higher, think about what you would get at 70, which would also be a lot higher. Now, again, it's not to say that a client should do something, but it's educating them on how all this works. Because if they have a concern where I need $4,000 a month and I don't have a lot of other assets, or I want to use those other assets for maybe vacations and hobbies and things you want to do fun wise in retirement, or even just have a nest egg in case something happens, a medical thing or something. They want to know, hey, I need this certain amount of income. So if 70 gets them there, that could be a strategy for them. Again, it's not telling them to do something, but it's educating them on how all of it works. Now, spousal benefits work a little bit different, and there's spousal benefits and there's also ex-spousal benefits. So both ex-spousal and spousal benefits start at 62, just like retirement benefits. But the big difference is that with spousal and ex-spousal benefits, they don't have delayed retirement credits. So it doesn't increase from full retirement age to 70 at the 8%. Now, you may or may not have known that, but I will tell you that a lot of clients don't understand how that works. So educating them on that is important, because I've had people come to me when it was too late and say, I'm waiting till 70 to collect my spousal benefit. Meanwhile, they didn't know that it doesn't increase, and they lost 3 years worth of that benefit thinking that they're going to get more by waiting, and they don't. And so it's, even on this chart, showing that at full retirement age, they would get a $1,500 spousal benefit, which is 50% of the higher earners PIA. It does get reduced for taking early, but it doesn't increase by waiting again. So it's important to understand how all that works. And the same criteria with that, as far as the benefits with spousal, is same with ex-spousal benefits as well. The only difference is the criteria of being able to claim the spousal versus the ex-spousal. So for regular spousal benefits, you only need to be married to your spouse for at least 1 year. Okay. And you can only claim that spousal benefit once the higher earning spouse claims on their own record. So you can't claim a spousal until the other spouse has claimed their own. As far as divorce requirements, the clients need to have been married for at least 10 years. They can't get remarried. As soon as you remarry, you give up all rights to your ex-spousal benefit. Okay. Now, to claim on an ex-spouse, you or your client and their ex needs to be at least 62 years old. Okay. And again, you can't be remarried. Now, there are certain other rules that go in between here. I can't say every single rule that goes into this, but there's a lot more to it than this. This is just giving you kind of that high level overview of how spousal and ex spousal benefits work. But again, every client is going to be different. Every client has a unique, understanding of what they need to do, and you should be able to help them navigate those different things. Now, there's also dual entitlement. Now, dual entitlement means that the client may be entitled to more than one benefit at the same time. And what that could look like is maybe a retirement benefit based on their own work record, but maybe their own work record is not as high as what they can claim on their spouse or ex spouse. And so, although they might have their own retirement benefit, they may be able to collect a spousal or even a survivor benefit top off that is more than what they're claiming. Now, it's not like they get their own retirement benefit and the full spousal benefit also, or the full survivor benefit also, but they would receive the higher of the two benefits, right? So, this is a real easy example here. On the chart here, you have a full retirement age of 67. Now, the higher earning spouse has a PIA of $3,000, which means the lower earning spouse can claim $1,500 on their record. However, Social Security always wants each individual to collect on their own record first before claiming on another. So in this case, their own retirement benefit is 1,000, and out of the 1,500, the additional $500 would come from the spouse's top off. Okay, so again, if they're duly entitled and can claim on their own record and possibly the record of their spouse or ex-spouse, they're always going to claim as much on their own record before being able to claim any additional amount based on their spouse or ex-spouse, whether that's a spousal benefit or a survivor payment. Now, speaking of survivor benefits, there's really a couple things that happen, right? There's the early passing, right? Maybe someone passes in their 50s or their 60s or even earlier, right? And how that works with survivor payments. And then there's also those where you might have a couple who's in their 80s or 90s and one of them passes away. Those are usually the two common things that happen. And so the first situation is okay, if someone passes earlier and you have a surviving spouse that, is 60 years old, let's just say, there's the flexibility where you can take a survivor benefit first while delaying your own retirement benefit. Okay. That gives some flexibility with being able to claim some kind of benefit early on while letting your own benefit grow, or vice versa. If the survivor benefit is higher, you can take your own retirement benefit first and delay the survivor. So that's a really important strategy, because if we can help clients understand in that situation, which one do you take first, which one do you take second, when that switch should happen, what all that looks like, you're going to be able to help them get a lot more money that a lot of people leave on the table because they don't even know that switch or that rule exists. On the other side of things, you might have a couple who's in their 80s or 90s where they're both collecting benefits and one of them passes away. Now, usually, generally in that situation, and again, there's more to it, but generally, only the higher of the two benefits remains. The lower one goes away and the higher one remains. So in that situation, when the lower one goes away, that higher benefit, if that's the higher earning spouse, they're just going to continue to get that benefit. If it's the lower earning spouse, that's the survivor, they will inherit that higher benefit. Again, it won't be their benefit and that survivor payment, but it'll be the higher of the two. Now, as far as dependent benefits, dependents are also eligible. And it's not just when the parent passes, but it could be when they're claiming their own retirement benefit from 62 or older. They may have a child who's either 18 or 19 if still in high school, or younger as a minor child. They might have a disabled child as long as the child was disabled before age 22. And there's also something called a spousal in care benefit for a spouse caring for that child who's under age 16 or disabled. So these are known as dependents in Social Security. And while that person who is claiming on their own record is living, those dependents can claim up to 50% of that person's PIA. 75% of their PIA if it is a deceased parent. Okay. Now, there's a family maximum also, which is considered where they're not just going to pay out a whole bunch of benefits, meaning that if someone has five, seven, 10 dependents, which we've seen, they're not just going to pay out, a whole bunch of money, 10, $20,000 to a family. There's something called a family max where Social Security is only going to pay out a certain amount of money per family. Now, you probably heard that there was two specific Social Security rules that were repealed in January of 2025. This was the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset. These two rules basically impacted those with non-covered pensions. So, real simply, a non-covered pension is a pension from work in which someone paid into the pension plan, but they didn't pay into Social Security. So, this is a lot of government related jobs, and usually in only certain states where, they're teachers, firefighters, police officers. Again, they have a deal where they're paying just into that private pension of that work, but they're not paying into Social Security. Those type of people were impacted by these two rules, but the government said, okay, we're going to repeal these. People won't be impacted as much based on the non-covered pension. So lastly here, we have the earnings limit, or earnings test is the official name, but earnings limit on how much you can earn while collecting your benefit. Now, these earnings limits are only there from full retirement age or earlier. So once you reach full retirement age and later, there's no more limitations. You can earn as much money as you want without any limitations or them withholding benefits. Now, the only thing that counts as income towards these limits is earned income from work. So either W-2 wages as an employee or net income from self-employment. But pension payments, annuities, rental income, dividends, none of that counts towards the earnings limits. It's really only earned income from wages or net income from self-employment. Now, there's a few different times from 62 through the year before reaching full retirement age that there's a lower limit. And in the year that someone will reach their full retirement age, that January through that full retirement age month, there is a higher limit. And then again, like I said, there's no limit from full retirement age and on. So, lastly, before we wrap up and answer a few questions here, I know we went through the last few slides a little quickly with some time constraints. But overall, if you're interested in learning more about the Registered Social Security Analyst program, we provide you with a full ecosystem to integrate Social Security planning into your practice. So, if you're looking to really become a subject matter expert in Social Security, to help your current clients and bring more value and more referrals on that aspect, as well as get in front of more people and more opportunities for business growth and offering your other services. Social Security is a great topic to lead in with, and it organically opens the conversation for all the other products and services that you guys provide today. So, we're only going to talk shortly about the program, but if you want to learn more, on the last slide, I'll have my contact information and I can send you a full demo of what we offer and how we can help you get started. So we provide you with education, the designation you can put behind your name, the RSSA roadmap software to actually run the cases, success training on how to integrate it into your practice, all of the marketing, and the back office support. Here's a list of our educational partners. So we partner with the American College as well as Kaplan. Last year, we became an Age Tech Collaborative from AARP Portfolio Company. And 4 CE credits were approved by the FI 360, the IRS, NASBA, the CFP Board, the American College and their credentials, as well as 47 states for insurance CE. So the last question, and then I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have over the last 10 minutes or so. How many clients do you believe would benefit from a deeper Social Security planning and analysis? So no clients, less than 30%, between 50 and 75%, and nearly every client. So what would you say is would help your clients? All right, so the consensus looks like either between 50 and 75% or nearly all of them. Okay, so that's good. That's a true understanding of why this is so important. So I'm glad that you guys see that helping clients with this is an important aspect. All right. So again, Sarah, if we want to open up the floor for questions, and everybody, just so you know, if you want more information on the program and RSSA in general, you can visit rssa.com/NAIFA. My contact information is here as well. And feel free to send me an email and ask for a full demo of the platform or schedule a call, and I'm happy to walk you through that as well. Oh, you're on mute.
I just realized that. What happens to everybody. Thank you so much for a great presentation. I know that we all learned a lot. We will open it up for questions. I do have one that Peter Bondioli did put in the chat. Peter says, I waited until age 70 to collect. My spouse had started collecting hers at age 60. Right now, as a spouse, she received about 70% of her spousal she gets from me. When I die, will she start getting 100% of mine, or will she have a reduction of mine because she initially claimed early?
So no, claiming early on your own will not impact the survivor payment. It depends on what age she is when she collects that survivor payment. So as long as she's full retirement age or later, when that survivor payment becomes available, she would collect your full benefit.
Great. Does anybody else like to unmute or put a question in the chat for Tom? Okay. This has been recorded, and so I will, once the recording is downloaded, I will send a link to all of you along after your CE has been submitted. I'll also, excuse me, I'll also include Tom's information as well, so you can reach out specifically. I'll give
Excellent.
one more moment if anybody would like to unmute and ask a question.
This is Cheryl. I have a quick question.
Sure.
If someone has made a decision on their Social Security benefit, can they go back and change? Is there a time frame for that, or that's not allowed?
If someone already began collecting, they have a withdrawal of application that could be done within the first 12 months of application. So as long as they're within the first 12 months, they can withdraw. The only downside to that is they do have to pay back all of the benefits that they were given to that point. Another thing that they can do is that once they reach full retirement age, they could do a voluntary suspension. If they've already begun collecting, they can voluntarily stop their benefit. This will allow it to accrue 8% a year again, where they can turn it back on later on up to age 70. So there are a few things that they can do.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey,
Tom, question?
Yes. So given the scenario that you showed here, what age would the person be? How old would they have to live? Difference between age 62 taking it at age 70.
As far as a break-even point, Tom?
Yeah.
Yeah, most break-evens are just generally from 80 to 82. Okay. Now, more importantly, Tom, what I look at with clients is their expenses and what their need is, right? So you may say, okay, I want to collect at 62 versus 70 on a basis of break even. But if someone says, I need $5,000 a month to live comfortably, then my goal would be to, forget about the lifetime benefits and look at that monthly and annual benefit to get them to the fixed expense need that they have.
great. Any other last questions?
I have one quick one, Tom Walsh. If you're already on RMDs, but you are continually working and still getting W-2 and other income, does that increase your benefit going down the road?
Yeah, so if you are already on benefits and you continue to work, you can still increase your benefit. What they'll end up doing is each year they're going to look at your past 35 years and with your new earnings and say, is it part of it? And if it is, each year they're going to replace your smallest year with your new earnings, recalculate your benefit, and you're going to receive an increase that next year based on that. And they're also at the same time going to look at that year's cost of living adjustment in October. The cost of living adjustment is announced. and then you'll start to receive that in your January payment. So in January of that next year, you may see an increase based on the replaced earnings with your future earnings, as well as the compounding cost of living adjustment.
Good. Interesting. Very good. Thanks.
Yeah. It's a common question. People think, hey, I'm already collecting. I'm not paying in anymore. You're still paying in because you're still working. The question is my work increasing my benefit, or am I paying in and not getting anything out of it? That's a common question I get from clients.
Great. Well, thank you so much. You'll be receiving an email. Tom, thank you. And we'll see you next time.
Yep.
Take good
Thanks,
care.
everybody. I hope you had a great presentation. I look forward to hearing from some of you guys. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye-bye.